Could Sammy Jackson be the first commit for Darren DeVries in Indiana basketball in 2026? Plus, we're 100 days away from Indiana football.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Well, we are 100 days away from the start of Indiana football. We'll talk about that, the most important games on the schedule, and the top 5 things that I am most excited about for the upcoming football season. All of that later on in today's show. But we begin with another player in the class of 2026, a 4-star who continues to climb up the rankings, and one that Indiana is trending up for, a guy that very well could be the first commit for the Hoosiers in the class of 2026, and his name is Sammy Jackson. He's a player from Pennsylvania, originally from the state of Florida. He is one that Darren DeVries and company have been watching over the past couple of weeks. They saw him this past weekend. They offered him a scholarship in early to mid-May, and they plan on getting him on campus in the middle of June. Now, this sounds very familiar with just that information. Sounds very familiar with what we've talked about with several of these players in the class of 2026, right? Sounds like it's almost a cookie cutter thing of, well, they reached out, then they saw him, then they offered him. Now they're trying to get him on a visit. But this one is all official. And this one is very fascinating to me because it's someone that the Hoosiers pretty much had no momentum with, or no traction with, or really nothing to go off of other than, hey, we kind of think you're a good player. Want to come check us out? Want to come take a look? Will you just come see what we have going on over here in Bloomington? And he decided to say, yeah, I'll come check it out. And it sounds like he's pretty excited. But here's some of the numbers on Sammy Jackson. Sammy, and then Jackson spelled like you think it is. He's in the class of 2026. He's 6'7", 185 pounds, if he's lucky. Okay, that's with some weights in his shoes and maybe a couple of jerseys on and a sweatshirt underneath it. 6'7", 185 pounds. He's considered a 4-star pretty much anywhere that you look, but a top 100 player in all of high school basketball in the class of 2026. And depending on where you look, he's listed as a small forward, but he plays with the basketball in his hands most of the time. He is someone that can run the point. He can run the fast break. He can post up. He can shoot inside. He can finish inside. He can pretty much do it all. He's just a little on the, not undersized, but he's just lean, man. He's just lean and mean and has nothing but skin and bones. And I say that in nothing but a positive way. He's got some weight to put on, but he uses that to his advantage because he moves very quickly. He can shoot over defenders. And as I said, he plays with the basketball in his hands more times than not. I mean, with his AAU teams and his high school teams, he almost plays as their point guard. He kind of runs the show offensively. There's a lot of dribble handoffs. There's a lot of high screen pick and rolls. There's a lot of, hey, let me pass it to you, get the defender off, and then pass it right back to me, and I'm going to try and make something happen. That's what Sammy Jackson does, okay? He was offered by Darren DeVries and this staff in early May. He'll be taking a visit to Indiana, then taking a visit to the University of Texas, where he said Sean Miller, who, yes, is the new head coach there, has been recruiting him since that staff was at Xavier. So you are fighting an uphill battle, yes, but you're starting with a brand new clean slate because he's talked with Sammy Jackson. He has talked with the likes of On3 and 247 and all the different recruiting sites. And listen to this quote. He says about Indiana, yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about them, but I'm excited to go on a visit. That's what he said. He said he doesn't know a whole lot about the Hoosiers, but he's ready to come on a visit. You know what that tells me? Tells me that Indiana and Darren DeVries and this entire staff have a major opportunity here to make a really great example and to flat out hit a home run. Lay out the red carpet. Do everything you can. Yeah, he's a 4-star. And yeah, he's only, quote, I put that in major quotations for those of you listening on audio. He's only a top 100 player, but someone that is continuing to rise. And notice that's an ongoing trend here. That's not me repeating myself. That is something that this staff has gone out of their way to find is players that they think, yes, are good right now and sure are being recognized as such, but players that are going to get better in their final season of basketball or their final 2 seasons, if we're talking about 2027 recruits. That seems to be a trend, and it's not by accident. And Sam Long in that line of players that, yes, they're good now, but they're only going to get better. And so you're in a battle with Texas, and Auburn's in there as well. And I think many more big name programs are going to jump on this kid because of how good that he is. And was talking a little bit about his game. And yes, he has the basketball in his hands a lot, but he's also a really good spot up shooter. He's someone that will find an open spot on the floor, whether it's in the corner, on the wing. He can shoot the three, even at 6'7". Yes, he can shoot, and does a really good job of just catching and getting it out of his hands. Not super quick, but not too slow. Just a really good timed release. And that goes into kind of what I want to say in terms of when I watched him on film. He seems very relaxed. He seems very calm. It's not slow, but it's not just let me do this as quickly as I can. And I don't know if that's good or bad yet. I haven't decided whether I like that about him or maybe it worries me because the college game is going to be sped up. Believe it or not, even though AAU ball and those EYBL tournaments and things that he's a part of, I mean, they run and that's pretty much all they do. But just the decision making has to be turned up in D1, Power 4, Power 5 college basketball compared to high school and AAU. And so, not necessarily saying it's good or bad because I haven't really made up my mind on all of that yet, but he looks really, really good. And I think just the potential is there. It's through the roof, and really curious on what this final season of basketball is going to do for him. Playing in all these leagues and tournaments over the summer, his final season of high school ball, and then he'll make his decision and go play Power 5 basketball. He could play small forward, shooting guard, point guard. I don't think he could be a power forward. I mean, I don't see that. I think 1, 2, or 3 is where he's going to be. And 6'7" is massive for a guard. But if he can continue to develop a shooting stroke and handle the basketball, not turn it over, and play some pretty good defense too, I think Sammy Jackson is legit. And I do think that Indiana has an opportunity to make this the first commitment of the 2026 class because of a clean slate that you're working with. He has no previous opinion. He had no former communication with the previous staff, which tells you all you need to know about them. And Indiana gets to start brand spanking new. You do that. You bring him here and everything is on the table and you lay it out as such. And the Hoosiers can make a big splash if they were to land a top 100 player, a 4-star recruit in the class of 2026. And his name is Sammy Jackson. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we will flip over to football because, man, we're 100 days away from Indiana football kicking off the season. I'm excited. You should be too. We'll talk about the most important games, what happens if Indiana loses or wins those games, plus the top 5 things I'm most excited for in the upcoming season. All that right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL or the NBA playoffs, rather, are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and during the game as well. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Look, if you think a player's going to go off like we've already seen, right, in the Eastern Conference Finals or the Western Conference Finals, you got game 2 coming up tonight. If you're watching or listening to this as it comes out, jump on that player. If you think there's a mismatch, go for it. Look, if you're like Rudy Gobert and think he's going to do something, then may as well jump on it. I probably wouldn't, but you're more than welcome to do that. And if you're new to FanDuel, now's the time to join. It's the perfect time. You can head to FanDuel.com right now and place your first $5 bet, because if it wins, FanDuel's going to give you $200 in bonus bets, all right? So make every moment more with FanDuel. They're the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here and making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And folks, if you can't tell, I'm really excited because we are 100 days away from the start of Indiana football. Most of college football getting started on that Saturday, August 30th. Of course, we have, week 0, and then you got games on Thursday. Now you got games on Friday. You even have a game on Sunday and on Monday on Labor Day. But most of college football is 100 days away from getting started on Saturday, August 30th. And that includes your Indiana Hoosiers, who I know the start of the season is not the most exciting thing in the world on the schedule. Believe me, I'm not thrilled about Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. Don't even get me started on how I think that is, I don't want to say a waste of time, but it's flirting with it. It is on the line. It is borderline a waste of time, a waste of energy, a waste of money, and all those things. I understand that you have to and want to give money to those schools so their football programs and other athletics programs can survive. You don't have to lay all that out to me. I've been around long enough. I know where all of that goes to and what it comes from. I'm just saying, cut one of those games out. Heck, cut 2 of those games out and play 1 or 2 to where, yeah, you get your tune-up games here and there. Or even in this scenario, why not spread them out? Because look at this schedule. This doesn't benefit you at all. Sure, Indiana's going to be 3-0 to start the season. Woohoo! What are we going to know about this team? What are we going to know where the mistakes are, or where the holes are, or where we have to get better? Because you're going to get humbled really quick when Illinois comes to town. And not that I think we lose that game, but it is one of the most important games on the schedule, which we'll talk about in just a second. And I want to make sure that we're ready for Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon, which are back to back to back. Having those 3 cupcake games at the beginning just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me and doesn't really benefit the team at all. And I would be willing to bet, if FanDuel had a line for this, that Curt Cignetti would tell you the same thing. And the players would probably say the same thing too. Man, it's hard to get up for games like this, right? It is, especially in 3 weeks in a row to start the season. Like, you want to go into every game with a nameless, faceless opponent. I get that. But, man, by week 3, when you're playing Indiana State, come on, right? Everybody else is out playing these big teams and having fun and on television and top 25 games and being talked about on TV shows and podcasts and things like that. Indiana, we're going to be the only ones talking about it because nobody cares that Indiana beats up on Kennesaw State. It's just, it is what it is. But once you get through those games, the season ramps up like that. And speaking of that Illinois game, I think it's one of the most important games on the schedule this year. I have several that I wrote down that I think are the most important. I have 4 games on this schedule for 2025 for Indiana that I think are the most important. And it starts with that Illinois game at home in Bloomington. You're already 3-0. You have 4 games in a row. You don't play, well, I take that back. You do play a game in September on the road because you start at the end of August, but you play 4 straight games inside a Memorial Stadium, which, keep that in mind. We'll talk about that in just a little bit as well. Illinois, you have to get off to a good start in Big Ten play, because once you get through those 3, it's nothing but Big Ten games. And Illinois is projected to be pretty good this year. And if you could catch them early before they build whatever crazy momentum they're supposed to build, and they go on this crazy run and they just beat all these teams, you could beat them before they do get hot, if they do, or maybe you do get humbled in this game. Maybe Illinois comes in and says, hey, we know you made the playoff last year, but we don't really care. We're going to come in and try and beat you. And I worry, not with Cignetti, because we should have confidence in him, but I do worry about the team in terms of their mentality, because this is the true first game of the year that you have to play 4 quarters, that you have to get up and play big boy Power 4 football. So that's why it's important you could get off to a really good start in Big Ten play, followed by the game that I also think is one of the most important on this schedule, and it's the very next game. It's the very next week. It's when you take your first road trip and go to Iowa. And look, that may be surprising to some. It may not be surprising to some, where, oh, it's the first road trip of the year. Of course it's important. But yeah, of course it's important, because what happens if you're 4-0 and you go to Iowa? Okay, cool. You have a chance to be 5-0 going into a bye week before you go on the road to Eugene. Do you understand how big that would be? How crucial that would be? Because the schedule doesn't get easier. You still have Michigan State and UCLA. You have at Maryland and at Penn State. You still play Wisconsin and at Purdue. The schedule is not as easy as it was a year ago. So I think that first road trip to Iowa could really set the standard, especially if you're coming off a win against Illinois. But what if you're not? What if you lose to Illinois? Then all of a sudden it's, oh, is Indiana for real? Can they get it done? And you drop that game to Iowa. Now you're 3-2. Then you're going to Oregon. You're probably 3-3, because if you can't beat the first 2, you're not going to beat Oregon. And you're 3-3 when Michigan State comes to town. Then things start to get a little dicey. So those are the 2 most important games to me right now, going into 2 home games on your schedule, which I have as UCLA on Saturday, October 25th, and Wisconsin on Saturday, November 15th. Because as of right now, I'm not worried about a road trip to Maryland. I'm not worried about a road trip to Purdue. And I'm not going to give us a penciled in win against Penn State on the road. Not going to do that right now. But I'm also not overly worried about a game at home against Michigan State. Now, if Indiana's 3-3, that may be a different conversation. I just don't think we are. I think UCLA will be an improved team this season, and that could be a win that Indiana uses as a resume builder, maybe. I mean, one where you could say, man, we beat a good UCLA team. Sure, it was at home. Sure, it was in Bloomington, but you have a chance to continue a cycle. And with this schedule, you've got to take wins anywhere you can get them. And the home games you have to take advantage. I'll say it. I will. I'll say it. Indiana has to go undefeated at home this year. And that includes my final game on this list, Wisconsin, who you play in the second to last week of the season, where they may or may not even have a head coach, man. Luke Fickell may be fired by the time that game rolls around. And if so, take advantage, man. Hopefully it's not one of those scenarios where an assistant coach takes over and they all rally around him and they all decide, hey, maybe the head coach was the problem, and they start playing good football. Hopefully that's not the case, but that's a chance for you coming off what we would presume is a loss to Penn State. Get a win there, go into the Purdue game, smash them like we're supposed to do, and then you never know. It really just depends on what's going on there. And so as we're 100 days away, those are the most important games on the schedule, in my opinion. Whether you win or lose them, I think they do determine how the rest of the season plays out, what your postseason outlook looks like, and a whole lot more. those are the most important games. But what are the 5 things that I'm most excited about for the upcoming season? Yes, they're about Indiana. It's about the Big Ten and college football as a whole. We'll talk about that coming up next in our final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here, and shout out to all my everydayers, those of you who show up each and every day, Monday through Friday, bonus episodes when we put those out. And so I really appreciate you doing all of that. And hopefully, if you're listening on the audio side of things, you've got your notifications turned on. Remember, send this to a person that's not already listening. Send it to an Indiana fan, your teacher or your boss or your grandma. I don't really care. We just want more people listening to this show. And so whatever audio platform that you use, send it to them that way. Text them a link, email it to them, fax it to them, whatever you got to do, get them to Locked On Hoosiers. So thank you so much for doing that. And then if you are watching on YouTube on the video side of things, make sure you do the 3-step process. It's easy. Like the video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. All right. You do those 3 things. We're going to be Gucci. We're going to be cool. And I appreciate you doing all of those things. And now, as we are 100 days away from the start of Indiana football and the majority of the college football world, there are 5 things that I sat down and wrote out that I am most excited about for Indiana football and college football as a whole this upcoming season. And these are, I think they're in pretty particular order, but they could be shuffled around. It really is just a top 5 and a group of 5 things that I'm most excited about. And the first one for Indiana is the amount of returning players that we have on both sides of the football. And this is something that I have talked about endlessly through high school recruiting episodes and transfer portal episodes and squad episodes with the Big Ten squad, which another one will come out tonight. So make sure that you keep up and check that out. That'll be a lot of fun. But this is something I've talked to anybody that will listen. It's the idea that Indiana has so much returning dudes on both sides of the ball, and not guys that didn't play, not guys that didn't have a single snap or didn't even know where their helmet was. We're talking about starters, key contributors, all Americans are on the side of the Hoosiers and both sides of the football that are coming back this year. Ones that have legitimate experience. Ones that have college football playoff experience in a game that got a little closer than people remember. That can't be a bad thing. I refuse to believe that that won't benefit the Hoosiers greatly in 2025. And so you look at it with the defensive side of the football, which I think is just going to be a monster this year once again, plus your receivers on the offensive side and couple of running backs in there as well. Sure, there's some new names and new faces on the offensive line, and of course your quarterback, who we'll talk about in a second, and then your tight ends and a couple of running backs there too. But the returning guys are your anchor, and they came back because they wanted to. They didn't have to. Aiden Fisher didn't have to come back. Michael Kamara didn't have to come back. D'Angelo Pons didn't have to come back, but they did. They said, "Nah, we want one more year. We want to go one more ride in Bloomington with Curt Cignetti and the boys, and we want to try and get to a college football playoff again." You got to respect that. It's exciting for me, and I really do think that it's going to benefit the Hoosiers greatly in 2025. I'm also excited about something we were just getting into, which is this tougher schedule that you have in 2025, because let's be real, it is tougher than it was last year. You've got games on the road at Oregon and Penn State on this schedule. The 2 teams who are supposed to be the best in the Big Ten, the 2 teams who were expected to be the best in college football this season. Yeah, that makes that schedule pretty tough, with a trip to Iowa in there. You have Illinois coming to town, Wisconsin coming to town, UCLA, Michigan State. This is a tougher schedule than it was a year ago. But that's exciting to me because it's an opportunity for Indiana to stack some big wins. It's an opportunity for Indiana to build a resume and to prove that they belong. Or it could go in the opposite direction. And as I said with the Illinois game, it could be humbling. it could be like, oh, okay, maybe last year was exciting, but maybe we're just not quite there yet as a whole. We're going to find out. I don't think that's the case, but it very well could be. So that does excite me for you to build those wins, get respect from outside of Bloomington, hopefully from those in the Big Ten and in college football as a whole. So that excites me. Also, Fernando Mendoza. Obviously, for obvious reasons, he is exciting as QB1 because he's so familiar and he's so similar to what we had a year ago with Curtis Rourke. He's just a smart football player, man. He just makes the right decisions at the quarterback spot. He doesn't turn the football over, and he's going to have the best set of receivers that he's ever had, with probably the best offensive line he's ever had, with I'm not going as far to say the best running back room because Jay Knott was pretty incredible at Cal last year, but he's going to have everything at his disposal to be really, really good. And with a defense on the other side that we expect to be solid, he shouldn't have to be playing from behind all that much unless the offense just can't produce. And the hype is there for the California transfer. Fernando Mendoza is going to be really, really good. He's already getting the preseason hype, and I think he's going to deliver in the regular season. So that's the third thing that I'm most excited about. I almost did my 100 most excited things, but I figured we didn't have time for all that. The fourth thing that I'm most excited about is the rest of the Big Ten. And I say that as almost a question mark, because the question that I have is the rest of the Big Ten going to keep up? Is the rest of the Big Ten going to be good? Or is it going to be top heavy like they're predicting it to be? And then where does Indiana kind of file in and settle into all of that? Because Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon are expected to all be the best teams in the country, not just the conference, in the country. I don't think there's much argument with that. But then you have teams like Indiana. Where do we settle in with all of this? Somebody like Michigan or USC or UCLA. Where do they fit in with the Big Ten? And then what about the bottom feeders? Can the Purdues and the Northwesterns or the Marylands of the world, can they climb? Can they get out of it? Can they be competitive in this conference? I'm excited to see what it becomes. And then ultimately, can the conference win another national championship? Some fans of Indiana or other schools don't like conference pride or don't care about it anymore, but I kind of do. So I'm excited about the Big Ten and what it will become. And then maybe the most important one, maybe the one that I'm the most excited about as we wrap up the show today, is the atmosphere and the fans that are going to show up and show out at Memorial Stadium this fall for Indiana football on a Saturday night in Bloomington. It is going to be awesome. I cannot wait for the passion and the rabidness of Indiana fans who are flying to Bloomington, to flying to the stadium, who they can't get enough of Indiana football with Curt Cignetti and this team and this staff and this program that is just on the rise. How does that not get you romantic about this season? And I know that it's May and we have 100 days and it's going to fly by. I'm just telling you it will, because media days are around the corner. Then fall practice begins and the game one will be here before you know it. But just thinking about a full stadium on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday night under the lights for Big Ten football, or even the Indiana fans that are going to travel and see this team play in Iowa City or in Eugene or in Happy Valley, that gets me pumped, man. That fires me up for what this season could be. We're defending a college football playoff berth. If that doesn't get you pumped up, then I don't know what will. And those are things that I'm excited about for this season, because the expectations are going to be there for us. They're going to be there for those outside. But at the end of the day, this team's just got to show up, line up, and play some football. And that's what's exciting, is the fact that we get to be excited about Indiana football again. And so those are the things I'm excited about. There's a ton more, but I tried to put it in a list of 5, plus the most important games on the schedule, and of course some Indiana basketball recruiting as well. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. As always, I appreciate you being here. We're putting in the work, putting in the time, and we're having so much fun doing it. And so hopefully you're enjoying it as well. You know the drill. My audio listeners, follow us, hit that subscribe button if it's a thing, turn on your notifications, and send it to at least one person that you haven't sent it to before or who does not listen on a daily basis. And then for YouTube, like the video, comment your thoughts down below. Tell me what you're most excited about for football season. All right. And then subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are back tomorrow for another episode to wrap up the week. All right. So until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe. And I'll talk to you later.